welcome back. I am filming this on my phone because I cannot find the memory card for my camera, so if anything weird happens, this is very precariously perched at the minute. That is the reason. So I got a little dressed up because I was dog sitting the most precious little adorable angel who would sometimes attack me, but I was babysitting her. Her name is Cosmo. She's so cute, and her family were in Disneyland, and it was actually my housemate and his parents and other family members. So they came home and his mother had very kindly got me a Jack t-shirt, so I thought I would do a little bit of a Halloweeny vibe, a little bit of a Nightmare Before Christmas vibe for my look today. And it's also coming into the autumn season. I know this because it's getting colder and the spiders are getting bigger. While I was dog sitting, one of them, I was working on a fiver thing on the couch, and a spider, I'd say about a third the size of my hand, which may not seem big, but I could see it sprinting towards me across the living room floor, so that was cool. And then I come home and I was moving clothes to put them in the washing machine, and I found a pretty much the same size dead spider among my clothes. So yay, we're getting into scary season for real now. So yes, I have been busy for the last while. I got to perform at Electric Picnic, and I've been doing other stuff, so that is fun. But today I want to talk about the movies I've been watching recently. Now, I have a list of movies here. I'm sure it is incomplete because I just did this from memory of what I remember watching in the last while. I also couldn't tell you if I watched these movies last week or in January. Who knows? But I haven't talked about movies in a while, so these are some of the movies I have watched. Now, most of them are horror movies, but a couple of them aren't, and I specifically want to talk about them for a reason, which I will get into. It's to do with telling true stories and people telling about their actual lives and how that translates into a movie and stuff. But let's get into the movies. One of the movies I watched recently, I think I might have watched this while I was dog sitting a different puppy who also liked to attack me. Still an angel, but a lot bigger. This was Silent House, and it stars Elizabeth Olsen, also known as Scarlet Witch, and I think it's on Netflix. It might have been on Disney Plus, but I watched this. I am partial to a haunted house movie, you know, creepy shenanigans going on. This movie is interesting in that it's filmed, I don't think it is, but it's filmed as if it's just one long continuous shot. So she is maybe college age, and she's going back to her family's holiday home. Rich people. Holiday home, and with her father and her father's brother, and they're clearing it out so that they can sell it. And so there's lots of memories there, lots of stuff from her childhood and her cousin's childhood and everything. So they're going around the house. There's some of it is being renovated and stuff, so there's like those plastic sheeting things, very spooky, and she is trying to go into like the rooms and clear out all the children's toys and outfits and stuff. And there is no electricity in the house, so they're relying entirely on electric lamps that they're carrying around with them. And of course this leads to darkness in places and dropping lamps and all this kind of shenanigans. But you very quickly realize that there may be other people in the house, like maybe squatters. It's a huge house. I think it's like 4 stories in a basement, like 3 stories in an attic and a basement. So huge house. There could definitely be people lurking in the shadows, moving around them and stuff. You get a sense that their relationships and their connections to each other are not really what you would expect of them, and there's a lot going on in Elizabeth Olsen's character's like mind, and you start to wonder, is what she's seeing real? Is any of it real? They do get attacked at different points and you're wondering who's doing it, but the camera is mostly focused on Elizabeth Olsen for the entire movie. This one was interesting. I understand why they did it and the concept behind it, but I don't really think that it hit the mark. It was all about like repressed memories and dealing with stuff from your past and your childhood, and for the most part I liked the one continuous shot. It did make it more interesting and a little bit creepier, but I just felt like, ironically, I was in the dark for most of the movie. I felt like I didn't know what was going on. Initially, very soon, you get sort of inklings about what it's going to be about, and if you got the same ones I did, that was correct. But then it just takes so long to actually go anywhere with it. So I was kind of a bit disappointed with that one. Next up, another one that I believe I watched this with my niece, and I think it was on Netflix. It's called Alice, Darling. The only one I recognise was Anna Kendrick, who I know from Twilight, but I think she's also in other movies. This one had an interesting concept, and after watching it I got an idea for a story that I would like to write that kind of takes this story but goes a lot further with it into horror. So this is more of a psychological thriller drama kind of thing. Anna Kendrick is in a relationship with a very abusive and controlling man. The type of situation where he's not actively beating her up, but he is very controlling, very manipulative. She has to do everything the way that he wants it done. If she speaks to people he doesn't like, that's a no-go. You know, the type of guy who says, oh, your friends are lowlives, I'm making you a better woman, blah blah blah. She has these really good friends though, and she goes out with them. You can see immediately from the way she talks about her boyfriend or things that are going on that they know something's wrong, and they've been friends for years, and they invite her, I think it's a birthday party. They invite her to come to a cabin by a lake for one of the birthday parties, so they can just have a girls' weekend and chill. And she obviously knows that her boyfriend isn't going to let her do that, isn't going to want her to do that. So she instead lies and says that she has a work trip that she has to go on, and he's not happy about it, but he's like, okay, fine. So she goes on the work trip. He very quickly figures out that she's not actually on a work trip and she is lying to him. Her friends are starting to interrogate her and trying to wake her up to what the situation that she's actually in. And at one point they steal her phone and she's freaking out because she knows if she doesn't answer him, things are just going to get worse. And eventually he finds out where they are and shows up at this cabin. So it's this clearly abusive and manipulative man and the girlfriend that he's trying to manipulate, and her two friends who are trying to get her out of this situation, and the clash that happens between all of them. It was interesting. It was good. I think because of my horror mind, I was expecting it to go a lot further than it did, but it just didn't go there. It didn't really go anywhere. And I think the story, the concept of this relationship and her going off with her friends and how the friends see the relationship, how she views the relationship, how she views her friends in this moment, all of that is really interesting to me. but it was just one of those stories that just kind of fizzled out. You only really got the beginning of the story, in my opinion. Nothing really happened all that much. So again, that one was fine, but a little bit disappointing, mainly because of my expectations for it. But it has given me an idea for a story that I want to write that is going to be a little bit crazier than that. Now the next one is another one that I think I saw it on Netflix or something. Originally I watched the documentary because this was about a real life story, and immediately after I watched the documentary I realised there was a movie with, I think it's Jessica Chastain and Eddie Redmayne in it, two actors I really like, so I was like, hey, gonna watch that. The movie is called The Good Nurse. I'm not sure what the documentary is called, but it is about an angel of death, as they are referred to. So it was a medical worker, a male nurse, who was killing patients. He was injecting their saline with something, so people who just needed an IV drip would start coding and would die. Documentary speaks to the people who worked with him, the people who were investigating him, and also I think some people who worked in the poison control in America, where you can just call up and say, hey, I just ate this, is it poisonous, I'm gonna die. And it was really interesting because one of the people it spoke to was another nurse who was really close to him, was a really good friend, would help her out with her kid and stuff. She was sick herself. She had a form of cancer, I think, but she had to continue working, otherwise she would lose her health insurance. But as she continued working, she got sicker, and it's just horrible. But he covered for her, because if they found out that she was too sick to actually work, they wouldn't let her work. So he helped her out with loads of things, so she had a lot of trust in him and she really liked him. And then it was her coming to terms with the fact that actually he has been killing people, and she eventually helped get the evidence to actually charge him. So she had to turn on her friend, essentially. What I find interesting is I watched the documentary and I was like, oh, all the points of this, of how the information was coming out and how they were tracking him and how they were all these different beats of the story. I was like, this would make a really good true story movie. And then I went and I watched the movie, and they switched things around so that it wasn't as good of a story anymore, which confused me because it already had those beats that you sort of expect and that you want in a movie like that. So I just didn't understand why they changed things. I think they changed that how she realized that he had actually been doing these things, and they didn't even mention how poison control had been called to ask about the level of toxins in these people's bodies and stuff like that. And it just, if anyone else has seen The Good Nurse or the documentary about it, let me know, because let me know what you thought of it, either of them, because I just feel like they had an opportunity to just go with the story. And I understand when it's too long of a story or it covers too much time, but I don't think that was the case in this. I think they just changed things for no reason that I could see, and it didn't make for as good of a story. I'm just not sure why they did that. And then, because I watched those, that actually reminded me of a movie that I watched with Chloe Grace Moretz, and I think it was on Netflix again, and it was called Brain on Fire. And this was also a true story about a young journalist who moved to, I think it was New York, to become a journalist. And she starts sort of losing her personality. She starts acting really weird, like getting really impulsive, doing very strange things, and she doesn't understand why she's doing it. It turns out she had like a really rare brain issue. I'm not sure if it was a tumor or something, but it was just slowly sort of disintegrating who she was. And I remember watching the movie and I was like a little bit frustrated because, again, it wasn't like, I think this is kind of the opposite, where it was following her story to the letter as it was in real life. However, that meant it wasn't, not that it wasn't a good story, but it wasn't hitting those same beats. It wasn't like slowly ramping up to the end. It was just sort of going forward and back and sideways, and I think that's what sort of bothered me about it. They stuck a little bit too closely to the real life story. So there are definitely different ways you can do it, but I'm also very aware that I influenced a lot more by Western movies, and particularly by like Hollywood. I think anyone in the West, we do focus a lot more on like Hollywood movies and stuff, and like there is a template for making feature-length movies and of any genre, and there's a perspective that they follow, whereas in Eastern European or in Asian movies, they don't have, or there are definitely different ways that you can go about making a movie and creating perspective and following a line through a story, and it's not all this like cookie cutter sort of way that you follow the story. So I guess I need to watch more movies that don't follow that same through line, that same way of telling the story, and just I need to expand my horizons in that regard. Now that also leads me to an interesting horror movie that I watched, which again, just like Brain on Fire, it I think it did follow the real story a little bit more than I would have liked. Now, I had such a hard time finding the name of this again because I watched it like a while ago. Couldn't for the life of me remember the name of it. I was Googling so many weird random sentences. But I have a special power, and I can like recognize faces really well. I once recognized the baby at the start of Man on Fire, which is a Denzel Washington movie. Was it Man on Fire? No. It was the other one where there's like time travel, but there's like a flash of a baby dropping something. And I was like, I know that baby. And I looked it up and I found out it was Dakota Fanning's younger sister when she was a baby. So anyway, I recognize, most of the people in the movie I didn't recognize, but I recognized one person. And it was one of the stepsisters in the Liz McGuire's A Cinderella Story movie. So I looked up A Cinderella Story, I found this actress, and then I was able to go back and find this movie. It was, yeah, I felt like an FBI detective, honestly. But I found the movie, and it's called Hypochondriac, and I think the director of the movie, or the writer, this is actually based on his life, and it's based on a psychotic break that he had. It's an interesting movie because it's about a gay man. He's in a loving relationship. There is nudity, just so you're aware, but it is like a creepy possession movie. So this guy works in like this pottery company. The stepsister from the Liz McGuire movie is his weird boss, but he works making pottery and stuff, and he has this sort of newer relationship with this man, and he's always told this guy that his mother was dead. I think he said both his parents were dead, But then someone contacts his boyfriend and is like, hey, I'm his mother, I want to talk to him. And it turns out that his mother, when he was like a teenager, actually tried to kill him. She had her own psychotic break. It was like going on for quite a while. She had these strange delusions, and now I think she's gotten out of, or managed to contact him in some way from the mental health facility she was in, and she is again trying to press these delusions on him, trying to convince him that these things are happening. And he starts to develop this weird he starts to develop numbness in his hands, which of course is essential for him to be making pottery. And doctors are just telling him, oh, it's just stress, you know, it's not that serious, it's just, you know, rest, whatever. But then he starts to see things, and it all sort of snowballs along. And again, it's like these memories that he's been repressing, or these things he's been trying to leave in the past, but they're coming back for him now. Really interesting concept. I really like the characters in it. Again, it didn't follow the sort of common Western storyline that I expected. I think it was a lot more related to his actual life. But it was really interesting. There's a bit of like possession there, repressed memories, and obviously mental health, and the fear of hereditary mental health and losing your mind. So it is an interesting movie. You should definitely watch it. But yeah, it sort of landed in with those movies that I was like, you know, when you're making a movie about a true story, is it better to stick to the actual timeline of events? Sometimes you do need to change it in order for it to fit into a movie. Sometimes I think it's better to leave it as it is. So let me know what you think. Have you watched any true life movies that you thought worked, that didn't work, or that were completely different to what the actual story was in real life? Now, these ones I marked with a little smiley face because they did make me laugh. They were quite amusing. I shall start with Megan. I'm sure you if you've been on the internet in the last while, you've seen ads for Megan. The ads and the trailer seem ridiculous, and that's because the movie is ridiculous. The movie's a bit ridiculous, but it knows that it's ridiculous. It's just funny. It's just taking the absolute piss. It's not 100% comedy, but there are definitely funny moments in it. The main actress is she was also in Get Out, so you might recognize her from there. She is I think she's a developer. She works in robotics, and she's trying to make a new product for her company. She has a sister. Sister has a daughter. Her sister unfortunately dies, so she has to look after her daughter. So she has to now learn how to, you know, be a mother, be a parent, and to this clearly grieving and isolated child. And she's had this robot in development for a while. It's an AI, and she decides, completely unethically, to give this to her niece, so that her niece has someone to bond with, has a friend, someone who kind of seems her age that she can relate to. You know, robots, AI, starts doing shifty things, starts to attack people. It's anyone who sort of annoys or upsets the young girl is in its crosshairs. There are some wild statements, wild dance moves that you may have seen in the ads. There's a really unsettling, bizarre scene where it starts singing Titanium by Sia, just a cappella, and it goes on for way too long. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. but it did make me laugh. It was a bit of fun. If you're looking for something just to laugh with, I would suggest Megan, because it is ridiculous. I did watch Renfield. I'm not a fan. I've never really been a fan of Nicolas Cage. He's a ridiculous man. I think even he would say that. But there are some movies. Con Air was one I watched when I was a kid. I like Con Air. I watched Two-Face recently. Surprisingly like that movie as well. But Renfield also has Nick Hoult, who is a great English actor. Like him a lot. This one is very stylistic. It's got a great colour palette, great Halloweeny greens, purples, reds. I like that. And it's, if you've read the original Dracula, the character of Renfield in that is an insane man who is one of his familiars, and he does eat bugs in the original Dracula. Now, I haven't read it since college, so I can't remember specifically if it actually gives him powers or if he just believes it gives him powers. But I've seen a few responses to this movie and criticism saying that it was weird that they added that in, that he had to eat bugs, and I was like, actually, that is related to the original text. So that was fine, but it's basically Renfield has been caring for Dracula all this time, and it's now modern day, and he wants to do other things with his life, and he goes to a support group for people in toxic relationships, and they don't realize he's talking about Dracula, obviously, but he is. And he gets caught up in the local scene by killing the wrong people, and then police officers are after him. They're trying to figure out what is going on. Dracula is recovering from a recent fight with a priest, I think, and so he's trying to replenish and build himself up. There's a lot of gore, obviously, lots of blood. There's also his the CGI and the physical makeup that he wears as well when he's like burned and decomposing and stuff is really hideous, but it's quite funny. It's a comedy horror, and it's really funny. I do think Nicolas Cage made a good dramatic, over the top Dracula, so it is a bit fun. I liked it. I like Nick Hoult. The next funny one, which you may not expect it to be funny, is called The Pope's Exorcist. Now, this one stars Russell Crowe, and it is based on another true story of a guy, I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head, but he was an Italian priest who worked for the Vatican and did exorcisms. I think there's a documentary about him as well, which I have watched. Just a reminder that documentaries don't all have to be true, but I love anything to do with exorcisms and stuff, so I had to watch it. In this one, it's an American family who's the dad of the family was Spanish, and he had an old property in Spain, and he's died, so they're going back there to renovate it, to either live in it or sell it. And it turns out that it used to be an old church, and the cellars and there's dungeons underneath that go a lot further than they thought. And of course, one of the children, the young boy, becomes possessed, and they are recommended to get this Russell Crowe in to help them out. And he's got this Italian accent and stuff. He's actually really funny in it. I wasn't expecting it to be so funny, but it is funny. He's quite witty when there's not horrible things going on. The actual possession part is typical, it was good, no issues with that. I was rolling my eyes quite a bit though, because by the end of the movie they kind of give the Catholic Church a pass on like the entire Crusades by saying that the guy who led the Crusades was actually possessed by a demon. So actually, the church didn't do anything wrong. That was the devil. Yeah. Okay. Sure. There is a small reference to sexual abuse from the church, but again, they don't want to look at that too far. The movie does end with them discovering, oh, there are all these doors that have been opened all over the world that are letting demons through, and we need a priest to stop them. And he had a young Spanish priest that was helping him with this exorcism, and he turns to him and says, oh, maybe 2 priests could do it. So it seems like there's going to be sequels to this, maybe even a series, which is kind of odd. I mean, I'd probably still watch it. It was fun though. It was fun to watch. Just not what I expected, I guess. 2 more to go. I did watch the new Evil Dead Rise, which is the newest in the sort of updated Evil Dead series. I really liked the first Evil Dead that came out a few years ago. I thought that was fantastic. It takes the Evil Dead series further away from like comedy and like ridiculousness, and firmly plants it in like terror and horror. Obviously this one has some absolutely fantastic like visuals and like really messed up things happening. The characters in this were great. The family that we're talking of is a woman and I think her 3 kids, and her younger sister, who's a touring musician, has just come to visit her. The older sister, her husband has just left her and the kids, so she's by herself, and the younger sister has just found out that she's pregnant and she doesn't know what to do about it, and she's come to stay, and they've sort of not been speaking for the last while, and then they get contaminated by this evil that has come from the cabin, The actual movie is really creepy. Obviously the makeup on the main character, the woman with red hair, fantastic, absolutely. She's a beautiful woman, and then they make her one of the most horrific people I've ever seen. People were talking a lot about a cheese grater, so when I was watching it I was like, oh, when's this cheese grater scene coming up? And people are saying, I can't believe what they did with the cheese grater. And then the cheese grater showed up, and they did exactly what you would expect them to do with the cheese grater. So, a little confused about that. But this one, it's a great tie-in to the series, and obviously the evil doesn't stop perfectly there. Also, you can expect a lot of blood. A great little family. I like the relationship between the family and the children and stuff, and it is really messed up, as Evil Dead tends to be. Now, the final movie that I watched is called Infinity Pool, and it's got Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård, I think. This one is interesting and odd. It's based in like a fictional Eastern European country where there's a resort for rich people. Alexander Skarsgård goes there with his wife, and they meet Mia Goth and her husband there, who go there all the time, every year apparently. And Alexander Skarsgård is a writer. He has married into money because his wife was rich, so he's sort of the outcast, or he feels like an outsider in this because he's never really had his own money, and he's just kind of living off his wife's money at the minute. But they're told not to leave the compound, because if they do it can be dangerous, because it's a dangerous country. So they're just stuck in this compound until they meet this couple, and they're like, oh, we're just going to borrow a car and go out. We do it all the time. So they do. They end up hitting someone with the car and killing them. And they're all terrified. Alexander Skarsgård and his wife are terrified. But it turns out that this country has a treaty with the US. And they have this bizarre new sci-fi technology where most crimes, you get the death penalty, but they are able to make a complete clone of you, perfect clone, and they will kill the clone instead, and you get to watch your clone, yourself, being brutally, throat cut, hanged, whatever they decide to do. And of course then it's the idea of, well, what if I'm the clone? What if they killed the real me? And then they find out that there's rich people who commit crimes all the time, and they just don't care. They do whatever they want when they come to this country because there's no consequences for them, and they kind of think it's hilarious to watch themselves die, and they're losing their humanity because of it. It's a really messed up movie. It is interesting. It definitely takes a look at, rich people just not caring about anything really, or definitely not caring about countries that they go to where there is poverty and stuff, and also just creating these bizarre and torturous games and whatever just to amuse themselves because they have so much money and they're so bored. They'll just do anything for the crack, pretty much. So that one was an interesting one. Some really dark visuals in that, and some messed up stuff going on. Alexander Skarsgård is great. I do like Mia Goth. She plays a very irritating character, and my god, does she play it well. She is so annoying, this woman. Every time I heard her screeching voice on screen, it drove me crazy. So yeah, that was that, but I thought it was really good. So now I just have a list of movies that I want to watch, so I'm just gonna go through them. We have Knock at the Cabin Door. That is a M. Night Shyamalan one, I believe. That one was interesting. That is about a group of people that find this couple with a child, and the people say, I think they say, you have to kill your child to stop the world ending or something. Crazy. Then we have Cobweb. I can't remember exactly what that is. Is that the one based on the Stephen King movie? Maybe, but I think it's a creepy movie with like a kid in it. There's Talk to Me, which is an A24 movie. I think it's from New Zealand, about this hand that you can hold on to talk to spirits, but if you hold on for too long, the spirits want to stay. It's apparently very good. I want to see that. Last Voyage of the Demeter. This is related back to Dracula. I think it's the boat that takes Dracula to England or something. But somebody mentioned it on one of my lives as well, and it's interesting. It seems like a different sort of angle to go at Dracula. We have Husera the Bone Woman, which I think is like a body horror, like a pregnancy horror movie. Not sure exactly what it's about, but it looks interesting. Attachment, possession movie. I gotta watch it. I love possession movies. We also have Pearl, and I think there's another one. So this again is Mia Goth, and it's a prequel, I believe, to the movie X, where she played people that were going out to a cabin to film some X-rated movies, and the people who owned the cabin went a bit crazy. So Pearl is based on the younger life of the woman who owned the cabin and stuff. So I think there's another one, but I can't remember what it's called, but I do want to see those because I did think that X was a really good movie. So I have a whole host of other movies to watch. I will definitely be making a movie about those as well. If you have any recommendations for movies that you think I should see, please let me know, because I'm always watching movies. I also saw this isn't a horror movie, but I saw the movie Past Lives. Absolutely broke my heart. Absolutely broke my heart. It's not even, it's just very like true to life, you know. There's no bad guys. Sometimes things just don't work, and I hate that, and it sucks. So those are my movies for recently. I have a fun video planned for next week that I'm hoping to get done, and I have some surprises in store coming up very soon. So thank you so much for joining me and spending some time with me, and I will see you in the next video.